Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for joining us for another Church of True Christ Sunday ministry. We have a couple of interesting topics we're going to be breaking down today. But first, if you all would join us in the Our Father prayer, the direct Aramaic translation. So let's get ready. O birther, father, mother of the cosmos, you create all that moves in light. Focus your light within us, make it useful, as the rays of a beacon show the way. Unite our eye can to yours, so that we walk as kings and queens with every creature. Create in me divine cooperation, from many selves, one voice, one action. Grant what we need each day in bread and insight. Forgive our hidden past, the secret shames, as we consistently forgive what others hide. Deceived neither by the outer nor the inner. Free us to walk your path with joy. From you is born all ruling will, the power and life to do. The song that beautifies all, from age to age, it renews. Amen. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I kind of want to start off with a quick story before we hop into our topics today. I've been dealing with a mice problem in my house ever since yesterday. My wife and I, we found out that our emergency food stash had been completely taken over by a family of mice. And the reason why I'm bringing up this story is it kind of shows compassion for all living beings, even though you might not want to show compassion to certain things that are coming into your home and infiltrating. Good morning, Spinja, Grand Rising. Thanks for being here with us. So my wife and I, we kind of teamed up yesterday, and we kind of gutted the whole room. We vacuumed, we cleaned, we sterilized, we salvaged what of the emergency food was left over. At least some of the good freeze-dried stuff was still good. And after we cleaned, we disinfected, and we ended up leaving some traps. But the kind of traps I left are mouse motels. So what a mouse motel is it catches the mouse, but it doesn't kill it. It just keeps it kind of locked in a little thing. So we ended up setting up these mouse motels because even though we're sitting here talking about Christ, Christ believed in compassion for all living things. And there's a part of me, because of my spiritual evolution, there's a Taoist part of me also that really kind of comes out in that as well, which is like, don't kill a living being if you absolutely don't have to kill it, So I ended up catching these mice. We've caught a few of them so far, and I've been letting them out across the street in the field or by our dumpsters where there's actually kind of like some food, that they can have and stay away from us. But that's kind of what I've been dealing with this weekend. And I know Dyanna's daughter had a birthday, so happy birthday to Dyanna's daughter. That's pretty cool. Oh, your mic.
Of course. It's funny too, because when it's your first child, it's like extra special, especially she's 9. So it's like, and I don't want to be like narcissistic about it, but there's something about, this is my anniversary of becoming a mom because she's my first child. So it's like very interesting, because at that point, like life it doesn't matter how much you want a child, plan for a child, try for years for that child. The moment that child arrives, your entire life is changed. And it's funny because churches are filled with parents, because as soon as you have that little being, the soul is real. You can feel something in this little ball of flesh that like doesn't do much but sleep and poop all day. But like there's such a visceral connection that you just know the soul is real. You just feel a higher power in that day. So that's just very interesting, like on those days to be like, wow, like how much did I up my life just with that moment right there?
Absolutely. And that's even like a really good segue into the topic we're one of the topics we're going to talk about today. Healing ourselves opens us up to Christ. Now, what does that really mean? So this is something big, is like a lot of you who have watched my show and who have watched Dyanna's show on their own know how big we are about healing ourselves, because healing ourselves is what helps us open ourselves up to these further remembrances and these further realizations. And it opens us up to the aspect of being able to embody Christ and embody the divine on a deeper level. And, we look at the modern notion, or the modern Christian notion, that if you accept Christ, you will be healed. Absolutely, that does come into play. If you accept Christ into your heart, you will start the healing process. But the biggest thing that I would like to bring up to the table today is that you and Christ can work together on healing that stuff within you. And what this will do is this will allow you to embody the principles of Christ at a deeper level. It'll allow you to stay in alignment with these spiritual values on a deeper level. And this is one of the things I think gets most overlooked, not just on somebody who's pursuing their spiritual evolution, but if you look at a lot of the modern Christian crowd, they are very exoteric in their sense of when it comes to the teachings and the wisdom of Christ. So what is the difference between exoteric and esoteric? That's just something I want to dive into. Exoteric is on the outside of us. All right. We're looking outside of ourselves for some kind of validation, or, some kind of answer, or, we're looking on the outside of ourselves because we are worshiping and we are not embodying. But then when we move into the esoteric, which is within us, there we start to kind of do the real work, at least in our opinion here. And there we kind of start to, mold ourselves and transform ourselves to be able to embody this on a deeper level. Dyanna, what are your thoughts about this?
Oh, from esoteric to exoteric, 100%. And it says it right there in the names. Like you want to go in, and like a little bit of both is all right, because I mean, you could see behind me, I like the exoteric as well, like the outside view of metaphysics. Like it does something. If you deal with it like in an artistic way, in the way your eyeballs deal with your internal reality. So it's still taking that outside and pulling it back in. It's not outside just for outside sake, so that outside people can think I'm better for any way, shape, or form. And you find the Christian church is a lot like that. They want to look like they're praying right. They want to do like, especially when you're getting into the newer churches that are coming about. And honestly, like the Baptist style are the same way, but they had to be the most pious. And then you take it to the new evangelical churches, and they have to be the most of the Lord. And they just like come alive. And that can have its place if it's in authenticity, especially like the evangelical way of doing things, and like really embodying it if it's authentic. Because you could see some of them doing it authentically, but you could see some of them going like, oh, I want to look like what she's doing. She looks like she's got the Lord. And then this can go that way too. Like with this kind of stuff and tattoos and things like that. Like the tattoo I was about to get, I'm almost like, because it's not working out like with the people. I've tried multiple places and it's just weird. And I'm like, am I not supposed to get it? Do I just think I need to have it because I notice other spiritual people have a lot of tattoos, and maybe I should have more tattoos because I do like art, but then I also know it's bad for your health. And then like, so the exoteric is where you're going to find more landmines, put it that way. Where is that authentic, or do I just want it to fit into a certain class? And then you have to go with the feedback loop to the internal. Is what's happening on the outside feeding me internally from a soul-led sovereign place, or is it just boosting the ego because now other people are going to see me as a certain way? And that's where the exoteric becomes beneficial or not, because everything has its place. Where the internal, it could have a negative too. If you were too internal, too inside your own world, you would become like think monks in the forest, just oblivious to how the outside world actually operates. So the internal has to have balance as well. So the two are that feedback loop that just perpetuate. Oh, thank you. I'm just perpetuating this constant spiritual progression. So you do want both, but yeah, your modern religions and all that things, they're mostly, because the way they try to teach you internally is filled with lies as well. So it's like they claim they're trying to help your soul, but it's when it's so filled with lies and they won't explain it properly, and gatekeeping and all that, it really causes a lot. Where in the spiritual world, because you're in sovereign discernment, you can hopefully come across such landmines with sovereign discernment. I can just say that too many times, but because when you are, then you start to like feel things intuitively and dissolve them away, how the process goes, integration, upgrading, self-alchemy. And that's just how those two work together when you are aware and involved in the process yourself.
Absolutely. And I think you brought up a really good point, and you brought up authenticity because, Christ loves when we live in our most authentic light, and the healing opens up the door. And hold on, we got something from Sam. We did have Canadian Spin just saying she's loving this, Dyanna. And then we have, hey guys, I think it comes down to knowing yourself and knowing your own truth. This becomes our compass for navigating the external. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more, Sam. But, you brought up authenticity, and Christ wants us to live in that authenticity. And I kind of want to do a breakdown real quick on, how we can maybe unintentionally stifle our authenticity. And this is something we don't want to do, because when we stifle our authentic inner light, we're not allowing our healing to take the track that it needs to take. And this is something I think a lot of us are still getting used to in this community. A lot of us have been conditioned to have this subconscious shame complex, I call it. We have, everybody is like, you guys have heard the term, have you no shame? And this is something that has, we've heard a lot through our lives too. But what is there to be shameful about? All honesty, this is where we start tapping into our sovereign discernment too. When we hear this saying, have you no shame? What is there to have shame about? What is so shameful about being our authentic self? And that's something all of us should ask into question. You ask that question because, there's absolutely nothing shameful about it. This is something we're conditioned to think, because if we look at the parasite class of this society, they do not want us shining as our authentic self. They do not want that inner light coming out, because if it does, it becomes contagious. Everybody around you starts to, take on that inner light, starts to see that inner light within, and they start to cultivate their own inner light. You remember the song, This Little Light of Mine, I'm going to let it shine, right? So this even applies to that. So, that's what that song's talking about, at least in my opinion, So, one of the biggest ways we can stifle our authenticity is not speaking our truth and not living in our truth. I think that is the number one thing, at least in my eyes, that will dim that inner light. There's a lot of people who are still kind of opening themselves up to speaking in their truth and living in their truth. And the one thing I want to tell people, as long as you're working yourself towards that, you're not dimming your inner light. If you're finding a space of comfort in not speaking your truth, or you're finding a space of comfort in not living in that authenticity, that's when I think you're dimming your inner light. But Dyanna, let's hear your thoughts. What are ways that people unintentionally, stifle that authentic inner light of theirs?
Well, for starters and you started with the shame point, and that's realizing that your authentic love and light is going to be embarrassing. This is why one of the favorite things, like Sarah Alcaldi, which we both loves, she did things to me when she said, embrace the cringe, or you are cringe, something about embracing your cringe. And it's just like, yes, because in our true sovereign discerning, authentic bliss and joy seeking life, that's embarrassing. Like, we would be singing down the streets. We would be doing, like, for me, it's like doing ridiculous voices, and I jump on stuff, and I'm really like all over the place. And because that brings life alive, that makes one wow. And this is why you've all heard me say, when I bring my kids places, they're like, whoa, because my kids are known, like, they can jump on the couch, they can get up on the table, they can get up on the windowsills, they just don't break major appliances. Like, there's very little rules, because I want them to cultivate a full self, and I try to show them that example. I try to show them what it's like to just be wild, but with morality, like, with, don't hurt anyone, don't be rude, but do stand up for yourself. And then it starts to be like where you just say things in conflict. And I'm not saying standing up for myself is easy for me, because, like, that's awkward. And then I think as humanity, we're working on a way to even frame that, like, because it's hard to just, I admire people that can say their truth and sound perfectly pleasant about it, where it's like, that's something we all got to work on, but that's part of it as well. And that's going to feel shameful. That's going to feel like, but I don't want to be mean. I don't want to be rude. But that's something we all have to work on, because the shame is sided into this bliss and joy seeking. And this is where connecting to the Christ light can actually help, because the Christ light just comes with such a full embodying golden energy that you feel inspired to be doing the right thing, that you could trust you're doing the right thing when that light is upon you, because that light, like, it never abandons you, but it is a higher frequency that you need to kind of agree to walk within. And then that's going to be so personal to you and how that feels for you. But yeah, bliss, joy, shame, like these are all deeply tied in, because they use the shame to keep us out of bliss and joy, which keeps us out of our true authentic selves.
Absolutely. And this even brings to light that saying, what is it? Sing like no one's listening and dance like no one's watching. That's something deep when we think about the aspect of authenticity and how it honestly helps with our healing. And it is the subconscious shame thing, the subconscious shame complex it takes a while to work out. It takes that exposure to, that's why, have you ever seen the meme? It's funny. It says when you accidentally use personality, your true personality with group B instead of group A, and it's like the biblically accurate angel. It's like the Ophanim, and he's like, whoops, so, but this is what a good example of what we're talking about here. Like you're going to have to, build up that inner strength within you to allow that authentic light to kind of come out. And, this is the one thing about that, though. Real quick, we have Canadian Spinja. Being told we're born as sinners gets us right out of the gate, especially being told by people who we have been told love us and care about us. Absolutely. And that's one thing we're trying to squash here. You were not born into sin. And we can even touch on that just a little bit later. But as we were saying, you're going to have to understand that there's going to, one of the biggest pieces of advice I could give to anybody who's on their spiritual evolution is when you start to heal yourself and when you start to evolve, it is going to seem like people are falling away from you. And this is something up. We have Don joining us. He's going to be sitting in with us today on the church. Welcome, Don. How's it going? Thanks for being here, man.
Good. I'm literally still in my work gear, just like you. I'm living a 9-to-5 and trying to spread the word. So I got here as quick as I could. Sorry I'm late, but I was dealing with different kind of pews.
Hell, man, no, no problem, man. Thanks for being here. But as we're saying, like, in our spiritual evolution and in our path of being in alignment with Christ, we're going to notice when we start to really get serious about this, heal ourselves, and walk that middle path, walk that straight and narrow path. People would seem, but let me tell you, it's one of the most rewarding. But you're going to notice people are going to start falling away from you. You're going to notice that it seems like you're losing people along the way as you continue forward. But one of the biggest things I would tell you is the divine will bring you to your tribe. The minute that you start to walk this path with your head and your heart and your hands aligned, the divine is going to replace those people who no longer served you in your life with people who are going to help you, people who are going to resonate with you, people who have the similar alignment of these spiritual values that you are now taking on. So that's just something I wanted to throw out there for everybody. Because sometimes we feel like during our spiritual evolution, when we live in our authenticity, we can feel lonely.
There is a point though where you do need to just be lonely, and because that's part of the acceptance. And maybe I don't want to get anyone away from manifesting that, but I think a lot of us can relate to the fact that physically there isn't anyone. Physically, like there's a few, like I have like a few close people, like, and I'm related to them. But other than that, like there's maybe one or two, and it's like just like neighborhood kind of friends where you do something, but there's not like a lot of truth. It's not like I'm living unauthentically. It's not that kind of thing. But we've come online and we're doing that online, and that does bring the grid online. But there is like something to be said, like when you have that, I remember what it was like in high school, and we were friends for many years after that, but like, and we were friends, some of us were friends since kindergarten, and we were like this, but that got ripped away because of the separating. And you have to be okay with that. You have to like energetically, emotionally be prepared for that, because that does happen. Like your core people, your core physical people that could be like family or actually family to you might be ripped away. And that kind of, you have to just allow that. And you might spend years like, there's still nothing physically. There might never be anything physically. And I have to just like, and I don't want to manifest that, but there is a certain sense of allowing, because like I spent time trying to manifest that, like making groups, trying to get things going, just to like create, just not even for friends, because I have kids. I don't even care about that. I'm filled with people, so that's not the problem. But like just walking down the street and being like, I'm the only one that knows what I know. I'm the only one that sees what's actually happening. Like in my entire, like there might be, but that's the thing though. Like, so physically we are pioneers creating a grid that maybe one day, because of the work we do, there will be more physical locations and physical happenings. But going into that thing as a warrior, knowing you might be physically alone, is actually something you need a check mark for the universe to continue bringing you those new layers.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Don, do you have anything you want to add about that? When it comes to embracing our authenticity on our spiritual evolution and our path with Christ, sometimes we might feel like we have people who are falling away from us. So you have anything you want to add for that?
Oh, absolutely. Like mine involved parallel consciousnesses, and that's a huge other subject. And when I tried to explain it to even my mom, she came back to me like the next day and goes, I understand Sylvia Brown, like the past life thing. Right? And I was like, that's the best I can ask for. But then you have other friends. Like I had a buddy that I used to help with stage setup, and when I used to do security and all that fun stuff, I looked at him the one day when we were on a call, and I was like, I think I figured out not why we're here, but how this universe, how this reality actually works. And he's like, don't tell me. And I've barely heard from him since. Right? Like he knows that I'm on a level. Like if I figure something out, I can break it down. They used to refer to me as drunk redneck Sheldon because I had a drinking problem, and when the alcohol kicked in, the brain did too. And I sat and had a drunken conversation with an actual astrophysicist.
Very interesting.
And like just blathering out my mouth, but was right on point with everything I was saying. And my friends were like, "You don't know what you're saying," and she's like, "Actually, he's dead on." Right? So he knew that I was at that level. If I reached an understanding, I could break it down. And he's like, please don't. And I've barely heard from him since. And I've known him for over 20 years. So yeah, absolutely. Those people do fall away. And to what Dyanna was saying, that sense of being in what we'll refer to as the 3D, like my job takes me there almost daily. And I feel like I'm that one person. And then the odd person will like, you can almost pick them out of the crowd now. Like if you're in a crowd of people, you make eye contact or have a friendly glance even, and it's more engaging. It feels different now when I'm in society. I used to walk through society just as another blank person, nodding at people, maybe waving, and not really caring. But now it's like I feel like most of the people I'm walking past are blank, and then the odd person I interact with has that light. Like I have a friend from work, Lonnie. We walked. It was like his third day. He looked at me. I looked at him and went, I know you. And he's like, I know you too. And we tried to figure out where in this reality we knew each other, and none of it matched up. But he's just one of those people that's on the same spark, on the same level, and we've met in another existence.
And that even adds credence to what I'm saying, though. Like as I was saying just a little bit ago, you're going to notice a lot of these people who you might be comfortable and you might be familiar with are going to seem like they fall away and distance themselves from you. But in return, you are going to make these new authentic connections. You are going to have these new connections with people who are on the same wavelength as you, who are embodying the same principles and values that you do, who might even be somebody you sit and have these kinds of conversations with, an outlet of some kind. So that's what I mean. Well, a lot of the times we've talked about this in a past episode too. When we start to embark on this, it's going to seem almost in some ways uncomfortable, but we have to ask ourselves, were these people serving my highest purpose? Were these individuals contributing to that? Were they contributing to my growth, or were they contributing to my downfall? And that's something that's one of the biggest things of pieces of disillusionment I think we can have, on our spiritual evolution and our walk with Christ, is to see that there's going to be a lot of people out there who say they love you, who say they want the best for you, but they're going to hate what you're doing. They're going to hate your evolution, and they're going to secretly want to see you fail. And that's something we have to just, have an understanding of as we move forward. And it's going to have an effect on you, but understand the best thing that you can do in these situations is to have the mentality, as Christ said, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do. There are going to be some people who, when they see your light and they see it growing, it's going to show them their darkness that's within them. And sometimes people don't want to address that darkness that's within them. They don't want to heal it. They are not either they don't want to face it, or they are not ready to face it. So that's something you just have to keep in your awareness when you move forward in your growth, in your spiritual evolution, your walk with Christ, that there's going to be some people who your light, it makes them afraid. And if you walk forward with that understanding, I promise you it's still going to affect you, because like I said, there's going to be people, they're going to be your loved ones, they're your family members, but you're going to walk forward with that understanding to where it doesn't take the toll on you. It's not going to hurt you. So anything you want to add, Dyanna?
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can make that less personal too, because everything you said is true and it goes deeper. Like when you actually want to think about it, like quantumly, to the actual layers of the universe, they are in a different paradigm. That's what expansion and self-alchemy and all that does, is it's taking you to a widening paradigm. So, and then where their paradigm was is like far away for you now, but you can kind of resonate with theirs because you used to be there. So it allows you to see them in most cases, but it does not allow them to see you because they are stuck in a lower paradigm. And that's not to judge or anything. It's just where they are. And there can be choosing. Everybody's offered those moments. You might not even be that moment for them. They might have heard something on a commercial that was a hint to widen their paradigm, and they chose not to listen to that. But when you're talking, because you're in such a different paradigm, they might quite literally be hearing blah, 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 you're going crazy, blah, 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 you're insane, because that's, to them, is insanity. So that's where we can have compassion for them. Now, there's certain people I've had in my life that I'm like, come on, you know better, because they've been in those spaces, but then they reverted back because it's more comfortable. Their patterns are there. Like we all had moments in our early awakenings where we would go back to familiar patterns. And that's what happened to me in 2020. There was no more going back, but it wasn't until 2022 that I realized I'm not going back. And my motto officially became, I'm not going to quit, because I haven't scooched back since then. That doesn't mean I don't go through dark nights of the soul, because I do, but they're in a blazing forward way where I'm breaking through walls. I'm breaking through barriers. So there's going to be some disillusionment there, but I don't go back anymore. Before that, what I call like there's my negative and positive like awakening. I would have moments where I would meditate for months and pray and do all the things right. But then I'd go back to being, I want to get drunk this weekend, and go do that and fall back into old patterns and blaming and shaming. And so talk about them.
I just wanted to give a shout out to Frankie Fearless being in the audience. Frank, she's the newest member of FKN. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there, but no, we feel you, man. We've all dealt with that. We've all dealt with that. So I just wanted to say thanks, Frank, for being here, man. Go ahead, Dyanna. What were you saying?
Well, that's just about it. Like they're in a different paradigm, and they're in varied paradigms. So person A and person B that aren't lining up with you, they're not even necessarily in the same paradigm. This is how layered we are. Like each of us in our own way, our own paradigm, but we can have overlapping matrices. Like, we are so energetically complicated, but that only increases the more we awaken. This is why life doesn't necessarily get easier as you enlighten. You hope it is, and that's why you do it. It gets more purpose, though, is what it gets. It gets more Christ-light, is what it gets. It gets more meaningful, which is just another way of saying it. Like, you feel like you matter more, and you can actually start to embody the God self, the Atman, the where we're going, heading upwards. And that starts to just be good, because the prior life of drinking and TV and all that was like, I don't exist, I'm just waiting to die. And that's that. Where you can bring it, and it might still be hard, it might still be painful, but at least you're doing it for divine reasons, and your life actually matters, and you're taking that with you into the next one, wherever you go, whatever your philosophy is, because that truly doesn't matter. What you really need to focus on is the sovereign discerning self of now, to widen your paradigm. But that's why the ones that don't change, or they go to a different one, like, that's where these things fall away.
Absolutely. Real quick, Don, before we hop to you, we got Spinja. This is the split, isn't it? It's not a club. It's not who has done the inner work, which inevitably raises our frequency. If you aren't at a certain frequency, you won't see those who are vibrating high. Absolutely. And I want to give a shout out to this guy, Extra Trip Riles Cannabis Corner. What's up, man? Thanks for being here. I got to see my grandma in the nursing home yesterday and got some good pictures. Things have been rough, and my mother can't open her eyes to what life truly is. She thinks it revolves around money. Yes, no, of course. And this is something we're going to experience, guys, as we grow. And of course, man, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. So, Don, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, first off, good to see you again, Trip. I've actually had him on another show that I did previously. Good friend. Awesome to see you.
Nice. Oh, yeah.
I did actually want to throw a little bit even more nerd on top of what Dyanna was saying, because if you think of it on a frequency and vibration level, and I was talking about this with David last night, surprisingly, it's almost like a resonant pattern disruption. If your frequency or your resonance is here at this higher level and it's interacting with one that's at like a lower base level, this is your experience in music, they don't interact well. You can't have a higher vibrational frequency and a low density. There's a wave disruption pattern that happens, and it causes agitation in the other wave, right? And even to the Spinja and I joke around, we call it energetically crop dusting, because she can seem to piss off her coworkers that she doesn't even work with. Right? It's just she goes in so happy, so high vibration that they're still attacking her, even though they're not in each other's physical presence. You leave an emitted frequency. You emit frequency everywhere you go. And some people it's going to gel with, and some people it's not.
Absolutely. And, I even want to add this in there, because this is something that I've heard throughout my evolution. And have you ever noticed that when you try to relay this message to somebody who's not on the frequency, right? The days of when we were trying to wake people up, we were sitting on a roof with the megaphone, the fluoride's in the water, and all of that. You notice how it just seems like you can't find the words. It's like almost your words become scrambled. They come out in almost an unintelligible, like non-articulate way when we're trying to relay this kind of message to somebody who's not on the frequency. And just you're letting credence to what Don was saying. It's that disruption in that wave. And, not only will you disrupt to the other wave, that other wave's going to disrupt you in the process as well. So that's why we talk about, how trying to wake others up and trying to show them the inner light, it can be an energetic stonewall for us. And that's a big reason, because of that wave interference. But then it's like you do find somebody who's on the similar frequency that you are, similar wavelength of consciousness, and it just seems like the words come out like butter. It seems like they flow, and all of the articulation is there, and the passion, the reciprocal energetic effect of having this conversation with somebody who's on a similar wavelength than you. So this is just a physical example of both what Dyanna and Don are talking about. And I know a lot of you have experienced that, in your world, because yes, when we first discover our inner light, we want to tell everybody about it. You know, it's you know, the similarity to Plato's allegory of the cave. You know, we get a peek at the real sun, and we get a peek at the real world, and we want to go in and be like, guys, look, like, yeah, you've got to come out of this cave and see what's going on. And they're all like, nope. We like the shadows on the wall. That's catering. But, you know, and we see that too, you know, when it comes to breaking down into the heavier spiritual aspect of reality. You guys have heard me use the cake analogy enough, but it's the people who are staring at the icing of the cake who don't want to cut a slice. You know, we're staring back at them like, guys, you know, this cake is awesome. Like, you should really try a piece. And they're like, no, the icing is beautiful. We're just gonna gaze at the icing. So, you know, and that's really what it comes down to. But ultimately, you know, this ties into our healing process. This ties into what we have to do to open ourselves up to those higher frequencies, you know, and the higher we grow and the higher that we evolve, you know, we're going to open ourselves up to more and more people in our tribe, in our community. So, and then this also, because this is, we know that the divine likes community. We know that Christ likes community. Christ wants us to be surrounded with our community, you know? So as we move forward, that is one of the biggest things. We have no fear is one of the best things I can say. You're going to experience what you might see as loss. You are going to experience the crumbling of your old world. But the one thing I can promise you is that in return, this new world is going to be built around you. And this world is going to gear you towards your highest purpose, your most joyful, abundant life, walking in alignment with Christ, the middle pillar, the Heros Gamos. You are going to open yourself up to that. So this is another thing, guys. Have no fear in this as well, because having no fear is also part of healing. You know, alleviating, because Christ does not want us to fear. When we lose that fear, we open ourselves up more. So, Dyanna, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, actually, because there is actually a real crisis going on, even in the awakening community, because you can see how many people are on Twitter all the time. Not you, John. You're not there. But there's a lot of us that are almost all day long. And, but not recently, because I noticed it was doing something. Sam has been getting that into my head, like, it's doing something. It's doing something. I'm like, no, I'm just getting my voice out. I'm just bringing my message because I'm passionate about speaking about God, and I don't have the time to always make videos. So, and then it was this guy named Dan Coe, I think, that said, to refine, because I have an open throat. So my ideas were very scattered on my old YouTubes. And he said, start writing. And I used to be a writer. So I was like, okay. And he's like, if you don't know where to go to Twitter. So I went to Twitter. I'd already created one I used to put my YouTube videos there, but then I didn't, but I never really used it. I only started using it last year. And it did something. It started to formulate thoughts. It was actually helping me. So like, you get this starting to feed yourself though, because that was good. But then at some point, and then it is good sometimes to still formulate thoughts. Anyways, long story short, dopamine addictions. And we all have them, and we all put them in the wrong spot. And then you can even find ways to justify why you're using it. But the dopamine addictions are so huge because it takes us out of soul-aligned fulfillment. Because dopamine is there to get you to do your tasks, because likewise, I can get dopamine from cleaning the house. I can get dopamine from writing something meaningful. Yes. But Twitter ends up sucking you in where you're just going for the cheap dopamine. Because if I write something meaningful and put it on there, yes, but I've noticed it's a slippery slope and it could suck you in really quickly. So I'm debating leaving it, to be honest, because I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to create like a dopamine addiction spiral with Twitter, but I was suspecting for a while because of what Sam's been saying. And I was in denial, like, no, it's good. I'm getting my word out. No, but then when it went down, I was energetically released. It was like magic. And I was like, oh my God, I have been giving a piece of myself to this. And so, so now I need to reframe this. So anyways, if you see me on Twitter now, I'm doing all this research on positive dopamine. Because yesterday I went through this obstacle course and I was doing this amazing jungle, awesome hero stuff. And oh my God, after I was on cloud 9 and I felt amazing because working out is boring. There's hiking I like, but that even compared to this was just like, oh my God, such a dopamine rush. And when you get a positive dopamine rush, it lasts for a very long time. And positive dopamine is of the soul. There's a connection there that I'm bringing to light, and I'm doing research on that now. And I get positive dopamine dopamine from researching, but it's not in the cheap way of Twitter. If I just research for myself, if I'm just researching even for a book or something, because nobody's seeing that book right now, it's something that's going to take a long time to build. It's not a cheap thrill. Like do, I'm so smart, send, and bam, and then do another one and another one. Because I get these epiphanies where I just go and I hand it all out, but I'm noticing like this is something we need to develop as a spiritual community, is unique and interesting ways for positive dopamine, because that is a God connection, and it's going to lead you one step at a time towards a purpose that is unique to your sovereign discernment.
Absolutely. Something I want to add real quick before we go to Donna. And I mean, even when we talk about mind over matter and self-mastery, two things that I'm very big on, we talk about delayed gratification. We talk about that delayed sustained gratification, because what happens when you get these negative dopamine hits is you're flooding your brain with so much dopamine. It's almost as if you're doing a drug. And you're getting this quick, like repetitious hit of dopamine. And that's why I was kind of grateful we moved the spiritual panel chat off of X into Telegram. I was like, yes, I'm 100% on this, let's go, because that is ultimately something that we encounter. I mean, we look at social media as a tool, right? And a tool can be used for good things or it can be used for bad things, but ultimately there's an underlying psychological and spiritual effect that can occur if we imbibe too much in this system. And that's the way that they want it set up. They want us to deplete our dopamine in this very repetitious, quick fashion, because it's going to have us coming back for more. And so this is why we talk about ways of delayed gratification. Just as Dyanna was saying, working out, she did her obstacle course yesterday. And love that, how I'm a big fitness guy as well. And, so there's one of the best things you want to do for yourself in your spiritual evolution and in your self-mastery path, because I know a lot of us on our spiritual evolution are on our paths to self-mastery as well. They kind of go hand in hand, learning about the delayed gratification and that kind of good dopamine response. Because, let's say for even yesterday when I had to gut and clean my whole freaking emergency food storage closet. I had to gut and clean it, man. It was it was a tedious process, but at the end I felt really good. I was like, okay, I know I've done my best here to alleviate this issue. And that feeling good lasted for the rest of the day. It's like when you have these quick, cheap dopamine hits and your body is getting used to that fast response. That feeling good doesn't last as long. It's in an instant. Like you might feel good for a singular moment and then it just subsides. And that's because the dopamine, hold on, I want to answer this real quick as somebody with an experience. So we have extra trip aroused again. I had the urge to go relapse the other night on harder substances, but I was strong enough to say no, and I'm proud of myself for that. Let me tell you, man, I'm a recovering opioid addict of going on 17, 18 years now, man. I totally understand. Don't do it, man. It ain't worth it. The best thing I'll tell you, all right, go and get yourself an acupressure mat. All right, go and get yourself an acupressure mat. I was actually talking with Dyanna about this the other day too. Dawn, I would definitely recommend it for you. But what the acupressure mat is going to do is it's going to release your endogenous opiates. It's going to release your endogenous dopamine and all of your endogenous feel-good chemicals. So if you feel like you're going to go use drugs, man, or if you're having that kind of urge, go lay on that fucking mat for 15 minutes. Go lay on that mat for 15 minutes. And I guarantee you, after you are done laying on that mat, you are not going to want to use drugs. Hell, you might even fall asleep on that mat because you feel so good. And that is definitely something I'm going to add in there. So good for you, man. But Don, what do you have to say about dopamine and all of that? Let's hear what you have to add in when it comes to that, because I know you used to be a big drinker and now you're not anymore. So yeah, let's hear a little bit of that.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just alcohol. I spent the large majority of my life chasing the dopamine dragon. I came from, my father's side was abusive. My mom's side was kind of non-present. I came from what you could describe as a very broken home. So the sense of self-achievement and not failing all the time was something I did always chase, even though it seemed almost impossible for me to achieve. Right. So I did go right into the hard, grade 7, I started smoking weed. By grade like 9, I had already put stuff up my nose, right? So like it really was a quick succession. Like, hey, this feels great. Hey, this feels great. But there's only so long you can do that, because either you're going to die, your nose is going to fall off your freaking face, or you're just going to sell everything you own because you're a junkie, right? So absolutely. And then I like transitioned into alcohol. I got away from the heavier drugs and drank more and more. You know, I would even relapse the odd time because, you know, let's put your hands together and be drunk and high on cocaine, because that's freaking a great idea, right? So no, I did spend a large portion of my life chasing this dopamine dragon. And even things like on social media, like the reels or those stupid freaking tap games or whatever, right? Oh, your Simpsons tapped out. You can build a Ferris wheel. Who freaking cares, right? It's just to make you happy for a South Park did it. The devil runs the tap games. Just spoiler, right? And it's the Canadian devil. God damn it.
Beelzebub, Beelzebub or whatever.
Yes. They did a whole episode on dopamine addiction, and it's actually very prevalent to what we're talking about. But at this stage of my remembering, awareness, awakening, whatever you want to call it, it's actually the shows, the conversations, and it is a sustained dopamine hit, like a delayed dopamine hit, because like after a show I get off and it feels great. I'm like smiling and it's almost euphoric for about an hour, just laying there going, we just did a good thing. I hope, and then I'll get a comment. Absolutely. And it's like, absolutely. Oh my, it worked. Somebody got it. Or, you know, I'll be on and like somebody will be like blowing up the chat as we're saying it. It's like, they're getting it. That's the happy I need now. Is I know I'm helping. That's my new dopamine dragon, and I will ride that bugger as long as I could, because I don't mind the high, right? Absolutely. Because this is my new medication.
I completely and of course, you know, both of us resonate with that, because you know, because when we're having these conversations, man, you know, and we're hanging out and we're vibing off of each other's energy. We're living in our purest authenticity, man. I think all three of us can say that when we hop on camera, we are ourselves in our most authentic way. And especially when we're, you know, the passion that we have behind what we're doing and delivering this message to people and helping people how to heal and all that. We have real quick, I want to say you are very welcome, Extra Trip Riles. I'm much no problem at all, man. And then we have Spinja coming in. It's so fun to watch. He is still so bashful, so freaking adorable. But it is, you know, because that's why, and that's where that sustained dopamine comes from, is because, you know, we're putting in this work. You know, we're delivering this message, we're helping people heal, and that's the currency for us in this. You know, we're opening up the doors for people to have that deeper understanding within themselves, so that they can succeed, that they can. Frankie, thank you, man. I appreciate it, dude. You need to hop on here one weekend for sure. If you're maybe down next weekend, we'll chat. But exactly. So I mean, this is what it's all about, guys, especially when it comes to our healing. That delayed gratification, learning that, you know, sustained dopamine, that natural, that positive dopamine is ultimately what's going to help you grow. And it's going to show you the discipline too. And that's something also I kind of want to bring into this a little bit, because you know, there's a lot of people in our conscious collective who are, you know, doing a lot of the right things, but you know, the discipline factor of this also kind of still falls short.
I don't think you need discipline, and I know this is why we're the yin and the yang, but I don't think you need discipline so much as conviction, and there's like a slight difference there, because like discipline to me, it's like how you do your workouts, but that's great because you're the yang and that works for your energy. But then there's so many people, because I used to be one of those people that.
Oh, geez.
Damn, she was on. Hold on, we'll hold space for her until she unfreezes.
Yeah.
Because she was going to play. Yeah. No. And this is why I like our dynamic. Okay, you unfroze. You're good. So you were talking about how I'm very yang in it, but you were
Yes.
talking about the conviction. Yeah.
Exactly. And so I don't know where I cut off, but like how I used to think I wouldn't get to be as top level spiritual because I don't have discipline and I don't want discipline. Because anytime I try to do it, I'm telling you, I can feel this in the top of my soul. It's like, no, it wants to do
Okay.
whatever. It doesn't want to think about it. Like when someone says, what are you doing tomorrow? I'm like, I don't know. And I don't want to know. I'll think about it then. Like and it goes into my human design. I'm splenic, right? You're emotional. So pre-planning your stuff out works for you. And I think you were splenic, Dawn, or sorry, sacral, which means I don't want to say it too much because I can't remember, but I think that's intuitive, but with more information. But mine's no information, so it's like it just shows like the unique way of going with your own flow. But why conviction is because like you state, no, I want the highest path though. So that just means like there's no permanent discipline, but with every moment when things come your way, to have ice cream, to not, to eat the French fries, to not, to go on Twitter, to not, to do drugs, to not, to drink, to not, like all these things, you don't need to have a rigid routine to just use a sovereign discernment and go, no. And then likewise, like there's days where I don't want to do the shows and stuff, my own or group or whatever, but I've made that a conviction to stick to it. Because when we do it, I feel better after. Like it's true. Like we do create this. And part of my dopamine research was soul-led community is a positive dopamine source. So I thought that was deeply fascinating, considering a lot of us, like even Karen, I think Kirsten's mentioned it, like all of us have talked about wanting to create a community, like a physical community for such a thing. And we're doing that online. So we're getting there because that is a source of positive dopamine. So we have that. And then there's all these other different variables. But I could see, because it's community, that being one way that would work for probably most people.
One thing I'm going to say though, real quick, is it's like it's very interesting, because I agree with you. I agree 100% with what you're saying, but it's also like another person's discipline is another person's conviction. That's definitely where I'm getting at with that. But no, you're absolutely right. Conviction is a really good way to put to do it as to phrase it as well. I guess no, you're right. That is the yin and the yang aspect of us. I think I get that a little bit from my Vedic Aries side, the militant, the
and Taurus is like that too, which is funny. So. But my rising is Taurus, which does help balance to a point. But I got that selenium in Sagittarius, and like the Sagittarius, you don't want to be told what to do, even by themselves.
Well, that's I get no, totally. And I guess so what I will rephrase that before we hop to Dawn. It's your discipline or your conviction, whichever you choose to go with on there. Dawn, what are your thoughts on discipline and conviction when it comes to this as well?
Absolutely. I think I'm kind of right in the middle, because I try my best to live these straight and narrow disciplined lives, but there's the odd time, I was joking on our chat yesterday about the breakfast donuts. I know that it's terrible for my body. I know that's not right for my vessel. I know there's nights that Spinja and I'll sit down with a spoon and a tub of ice cream and just not give
That's why I said those. Yep.
Right. I really am in that middle of the road thing, because it's like, yes, I know I'm going to do this. And like, I've got abs. I'm pushing 50 and my abs just came out of nowhere because of the changes I've made. I'm like, I'm doing great things, but holy crap, ice cream's good. So it really is that middle of the road where I am.
Don, I'm a breakfast taco fan. Okay. Like I honestly, I just, breakfast tacos of all kinds are my kryptonite, but breakfast tacos especially. So yes, no, I totally, and we're going to have those moments. Yes, we're human. You know what I mean? So like, especially, you were talking to me the other day. It was funny. You hit me up with a message and you were like, man, I got a junk food hangover, because I had all this junk. But it's funny because that the night before too, my wife, she had made some homemade strawberry preserves, and they were oh so delicious, and I over imbibed a little bit of homemade strawberry preserves and the sourdough. So but it is. And I felt kind of crappy the next day, just because of all the sugar and stuff. But yeah, we're going to have those moments where we're not disciplined. But, I guess the best thing we can do in those, at least in my eyes, is, yes, we are here to learn and we're here to work, but we are also here to enjoy. We are.
Well, yeah, because just to interject, because this is, and then because it matters deeply. What I'm finding in my research is dopamine is an energy source. It's a fuel source. We actually need it. We require it. So our constant search for it in all these things is natural. That's good. And that's why we want to start developing, because I think development is in order here, not just discipline and conviction. There is an element of development that needs to be involved, with just society, less work, more institutions, like more wild obstacle courses or whatever the thing might be, more juice bars where you can go and socially hang out and literally, or cannabis, like, because they have cannabis drinks, create social environments for those. Cannabis is sold behind closed doors, but meanwhile you can go to a bar and drink, and that's where you used to have the fun with the friends, was at a bar, right? Or that's where I did. But now it's like, where do you even go to have fun with friends? We go to these kids' places. This is how we find all these interesting things. But that's like, we want adult versions of that too. And there's teenage versions and stuff like that. But we need to grow bigger avenues for dopamine, because it's a fuel source.
Well, it's really interesting. So out here in Colorado, there are cannabis social clubs that have just opened up. So it's like, yes, you pay a certain flat amount, you go in, you get like a little booth in the room or in the place, and they have a certain selection of cannabis that you can pick from, you can partake in, and things like that. Also, the other thing too that they have out here a lot of are the kava bars, and it's a better alternative to alcohol. So for those of you who don't know what kava is, it's a root. Actually, it's in the pepper family. The bush is in the pepper family. But it's a root, and what they do is they break up the root and they agitate the root in either a tea or when I've made it, I've used a fatty juice like a coconut milk or something with a lot of fat, because a lot of the alkaloids in there are fat soluble. But you can make it into a tea with water too. And a lot of people have been dropping alcohol and kind of going for this out here in Colorado. So, I mean, do I think it's a better alternative? Yes. Although, when it comes to me and my past and my recovery, I think replacing one thing with another, but I get that some people, need that step down. They need that stair step. They can't just freaking, go cold turkey right off the bat. But I agree with you, Dyanna. There's also, there's a lack of places in our society, especially for people our age, adults, that have healthy releases of dopamine, and that's why most of the time, you go out, you do something like zip lining, or you go out and maybe you ride like a mountain coaster. Because out here we have, in Estes Park, we have a mountain coaster. And it's really cool because like you can control the speed on it, and they take you up. You're in like a little single cart just by yourself, and they take you up and drop down. You can go pretty fast. It's pretty awesome. But again, these are kind of cool things that are starting to showcase themselves now for like adults, to have that positive dopamine release. Because I know a lot of us who have struggled with addiction, we get to a point where like the only kind of fun that we want to have is good, clean fun. You know what I mean? Like we want to get high off our natural adrenaline. We want to get high off of our natural dopamine. We don't want to sit in a bar, and we don't want to drink anymore,
Or be stuck on Twitter now.
and be stuck on Twitter. Exactly. So there are things starting to come, and I think that comes with we have, and that's one of the things I think that's going to assist in our collective healing that we have going right now. And I know you both have maybe noticed this, is we've gotten kind of this push as a collective towards a more physically healthy, mentally healthy state of being and state of mind. It's just it's become a push. We kind of see it everywhere, and like, I mean, even an example, new things are coming out of the woodwork. Like I said, I found out that the lubricating strips in my razors had endocrine disruptors in them, so I ripped all of the lubricating strips off of my razors because I was like, absolutely no. But yeah, we're now being pushed to a more more healthier mind state, a more healthier state of mind. And I think that's going to facilitate the openings of these newer places that are kind of for adults to have good, clean fun.
Yeah. 100%. 100%. I'm gonna sign off here and then I'll throw it to Don because I didn't mean to jump in, but I'm gonna have to go. I just want to say this is a very powerful subject for those wanting like to advance and spiritualize. So you should dive deeper down this rabbit hole because I'm just beginning, even though I've heard about it a lot, but it's bigger than we realize, the dopamine thing, because it's a fuel source and we need it. I once went back in my early mid-20s, spent over $100 back when that meant a lot more in Canada on Smurf berries and Simpsons money for the app you were mentioning earlier. I was one of them, sucked into those apps. We'd build them a Smurf houses, and then my Simpsons, I think, was before that. And yeah, like it's just it's our phones. And I know people are into online gambling, even the way they trick you into online, what's it called when you investments, and then you have a broker, but it's an app and you win pennies, and people are like putting tons of money into it, and it's nothing. It's not real investment. They're being tricked. And there's all these things coming out that get us on this. So there's lots of people now that are drug addicts and they don't realize it. And they're letting their essence and their soul. I bet somebody's looshing it. Like I bet that's loosh. They're looshing their stuff out because you feel drained after, you feel gross. Where positive dopamine from obstacle courses or community service or whatever the deep positive meaning is, it'll be of service to like the deepest self or someone else. That lasts. You wake up the next day feeling better. Your whole life is like the actual frequency is tuned up versus the other way, which comes quicker and easier, but it's tuning you down. So like there's a stark difference here that we need to start working towards the positive. And you can see there's a narrative trying to get us on the lower end, which as there is with anything, so no shock there, but it's just yet another layer that we're like realizing at a deeper depth of how much it's actually seeded into us and how we actually do need dopamine, because they use that as shame too. You don't need, shame. If you want dopamine, that's a shame. You're shame. No, it's a fuel source. So yes, positive dopamine. Thank you, everybody. And I'm just going to close my camera and you can take me out so that anyone watching from my channel can finish it out. But good luck on the rest of the show, guys. Bye for now.
Thanks, Dyanna. Have a good day.
Yes, you too.
So I'm laughing because I wanted to laugh real quick because do you remember, speaking of that, so do you remember the Terrence and Phillip freemium game that they had where they were turning it into the addiction? So yeah, but what did you want to say, my friend? Go right ahead.
I don't know if she can still hear me, but Dyanna is going to be on my show on Friday, I think, and absolutely want to get deeper into that dopamine because she was absolutely on fire, and I don't think that of what she was saying is nearly done because she had a lot more to share. So Dyanna, if you can hear me, I absolutely want to dig into that on Friday. As far as the food goes, mine was weird biologically. Like my body just started rejecting things. Like I would go to my restaurant and, have my bacon burger and fries. Well, 20 minutes later, I'm doubled over on the bed and I'm like, what the hell? This is terrible. And then next time I just had a hamburger, well, it was the French fries because they were cooked in something, right? That didn't agree with my body, right? I literally just had to start getting a nope list when it came to food. It's like, nope, can't have that from there. Nope, can't have that from there. Nope, can't have. And like my body flat out told me, look, change. Well, those of you that know, I almost died in November from gallbladder leakage causing peritonitis, which caused a heart issue, blah, 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 blah. My body, once I healed from that, just went, look, sucker, we're changing this, we're changing this, we're changing this, and we're changing this, and I don't give a damn if you like it. So I know what I'm eating is a lot better frequency than where I was, and I know there's still room for improvement. But yes, what you eat and what you put into yourself absolutely affects everything about your spiritual journey.
Absolutely, 100%. And yes, that's something that we will have. So Dyanna said she is listening, and that's awesome to explore more. She said it in the private chat. I just wanted to let you know. So, but exactly, because you're going to notice this when you start on your spiritual evolution and you start, cultivating that divine light within you, you're going to start rejecting a lot of these poisonous foods of the matrix. And that's what's going to start happening. It is because you've cultivated that bridge, that divine bridge in you. And anything that's going to harm that or take away from that, you're going to experience almost a reaction from. I think that, like you were saying, seed oils, like seed oils definitely mess me up. And it's also, I mean, since we're talking about dopamine, let's talk about the dopamine effect from enriched carbohydrates, from quick carbohydrates like sugars and things like that. Because, you know, when we look at sugar, it acts more addictive than cocaine in the brain. And it has a very similar response in the brain that cocaine does as well. So, I mean, we look at these enriched, refined carbohydrates too. They're pretty much just a sugar, you know. Exactly, Raquel. Let food be thy medicine. Awesome. And no, 100%. So, and I mean, that's why you see this promote. I mean, very rarely in our society do you see healthy foods be promoted. I mean, you know, you might see the pseudo healthy foods promoted, like the Special K protein cereal, which we know is not healthy for you at all. You know, or these certain protein foods that they advertise not healthy for you at all, because some of them are very high in sugar and additives. So, but you don't ever see truly healthy food being advertised. You see McDonald's, you see KFC, you see pizza, you see all of this stuff being advertised. And that's another way that they get you with the dopamine, the quick dopamine response, you know, because you're going to eat that food. It's going to taste good. It's going to give you that quick dopamine hit. And then you're going to have that crash. And then you're going to have, being addicted to cereal. Exactly, Dyanna. So, you know, and that's definitely it. You're going to experience that rejection. And that's just another way that they get you through that dopamine hit. Hey, Extra Trip Royale, thanks, man. Good luck on that leaky pipe. And Raquel says she's so fed up at what they've done to her food. Oh, absolutely, man. And you know, one of the biggest things that upsets me, Raquel, is the glyphosates. Because the glyphosates, they destroy our mitochondria, and that's a big powerhouse of endogenous DMT for our bodies. And that's you know, our endogenous DMT is responsible. It's for that bridge. It helps with that bridge within us, that divine spark. And you know, the fact that these glyphosates destroy our mitochondria, and that is a big source of our endogenous DMT. That should show you that what is happening to our food is malicious. So real quick, I kind of want to bring this up because Spinja brought it up. We got I think one of the ways Don has controlled his sweet tooths is that he limits it to the homemade goodies. And that's a good way to control it, man. You know, like it is, because in all honesty too, you know, like here's a good example. Let's say you want an egg McMuffin from McDonald's, because if there's anything that I absolutely would probably still eat from McDonald's, freaking would be an egg McMuffin. That's it. But again, you even look at the egg McMuffin and it's not that great for you because of all the ingredients. But you make a homemade egg McMuffin. All right. You know, you make a home cooked egg McMuffin and you make a home cooked hash brown on the side. And it's like you can almost have your cake and eat it too. And you know that you're going to be eating something that's home cooked, it's not processed, it doesn't have the seed oils in it, all of that. And you're getting to still have your egg McMuffin and your hash brown. So absolutely. So Don, how's it been tackling the sweet tooth thing going?
Oh, like literally, like I've had knee surgery and spent a lot of time on my back because of it. I had a snack shelf. It was nothing but junk food. But before I go too far into this, she never brings this up. She never brags about it, and she never actually says anything about it. I want to take a second to shout out my interdimensional exit buddy who's lost over 80 pounds. That's a freaking human. That's a freaking human. Right?
Dude, Spinja. That's like half a person. That's freaking awesome, man.
Yeah. So absolutely hats off to her, because like not a lot of people have that kind of drive and determination to remain healthy. And I'm going to age myself here. I'll even give the age. I'm 47 years old. I was 9 when I noticed that McDonald's started to make me feel sick after I ate it. And if you look, that's right around the time that they stopped using beef tallow in the French fries. Right? Mm-hmm. You can actually find when they started to turn fast food into garbage, because Originally there was a roadside picnic when you were out with your family, and you'd have a cooler in the car, and that's what you ate on the road. And then there was some original fast food restaurants that came from a good place that were just trying to feed families on the go. And then it got bastardized, and then it got taken over, and then it got poisoned. And it was about when I was 9 years old. It wasn't even a slow drip. It was overnight. They just stopped using beef tallow, and I started feeling sick from the food.
And exactly. And, and that's because what we're looking at that time. So we're looking at the transference of these restaurants. When they first began, they were family owned. They were family oriented. They were these small mom and pop businesses. And through their success, they ended up expanding and franchising out. And, of course, money it comes into play with this stuff, and they wanted to make it cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and cheaper to pump out more and more food. And of course, I'm not saying there wasn't any other kind of intention involved in that as well. We do see the revolving door between our food and the pharmaceutical industry. There's that revolving door. That's why there's all of this shit in the food, all of this garbage that we don't need, these additives, these seed oils, because it opens the door up to this chronic illness that will occur due to the food in this country. And that's one of the biggest things. I was talking with somebody I worked with the other day, and he talked about how he went over to Italy, and he was telling me the difference. He's like, man, I'd go over to Italy and I'd eat the pizza over there, and I would crush a whole freaking pizza. And he goes, I wouldn't feel like crap. I wouldn't feel bloated. I wouldn't feel like brain fog or anything along those lines. He goes, but if I were to crush a whole pizza here in the United States, I would feel like shit. I would feel like absolute crap. I would feel bloated. I would have brain fog and all that. So what's that tell you about our food here in the United States of America? I mean, you even go over to the UK, shout out to Sam, and you go get an Egg McMuffin from the McDonald's in the UK. It's only got like 7 ingredients. And then you come over here to the United States of America, you get an Egg McMuffin at the McDonald's here, and it's got like 20 to 25 ingredients in it. You know what I mean? So that's one of the biggest things, that in our spiritual evolution, we realize is that our food here in America really ain't that great. And, a lot of people in this country like to tout America. Oh, you can choose whatever food you want to eat. Like, we have the widest selection. Quantity does not mean quality. And that's something that a lot of people need to understand. And this is something I want to touch on real quick before we sign off, because we're talking about health and we gravitated into health. There is a mindset with a lot of modern Christians that I kind of want to bring up right now, that taking care. Let me see what Spinja just said here real quick. She said there's even a difference in the food between Ontario and Alberta. Alberta still has real butter, for example. So exactly. You know what I mean? I got to try some of that Berta beef. We're going to have to do an exchange. I'm going to have to hop over the border with my Colorado beef. We're going to have to hand it off. And we can make it all official too. Like, I can cut open the brick of the Berta beef, and I can put a little in my gums and be like, yeah, this is great Berta beef. But there's a new mentality in the modern Christian crowd that they don't need to take care of their bodies, or they don't want to exercise or work out because they think it's being ungrateful for what God gave them as far as their body goes. And I want to say that's probably one of the biggest misconceptions I've heard about treating your body as a temple. All right. If your body is the seat of the soul, okay, and this is where, you are experiencing this existence from, why wouldn't you want to treat your body like a temple? Why wouldn't you want it in a positively healthful state? And so this is something I kind of want to bring to the table to squash, because there's a couple of, Christian podcasters who are like, I used to work out, but I don't work out anymore because I don't want to be ungrateful for what God gave me, or, the body that God gave me. But here's the thing, God gave you this body. Take care of it. You know what I mean? Take care of it. I can maybe understand why you don't want to work out for vanity purposes. Okay. And I can totally maybe understand that in your mentality. But when it comes to overall health,
and what exercise and eating well does for your body. And it helps you, I would even say it helps you let the light of Christ in more, because if you're keeping your body in a positive state of health, you know, and you're eliminating all of these toxins from inside of your body that can be of detriment to your divine bridge, can be of detriment to that spark within you, might cloud it up, might fog it up. You know, so that's one of the things I wanted to bring up before we sign off today, is that a lot of you modern Christians out there, all right, exercise for health, not for vanity. Okay. Don't just put down the weights for any reason, thinking, or just don't stop running or walking because you feel like you're being ungrateful towards what God gave you. No, you taking care of yourself is showing the utmost gratefulness to what God gave you. Okay. You disregarding your physical health and not taking care of yourself because you think it's a vanity is in some ways being ungrateful to the vessel that you've been given to live this life in. Don, you got anything else you want to add before we sign off?
If I would add anything to that, it would be just an analogy that just popped into my head. If you look at your vessel as basically a vacant lot, you can choose not to mow the lawn. Like, great, okay, don't do the grooming, but are you going to put a pile of trash there instead? Right? When you're making these choices, exactly what you're saying, like the complete, oh, well, I'm just living this experience. I'm doing what I'm supposed. If you're filling your lot with garbage, it's still going to be a dump at the end of the day, right? You still have to maintain it somewhat, right?
Exactly,
I get it.
Exactly.
Don't go do 2-a-days. Don't run 15 miles. That's great, but keep yourself healthy enough to sustain the life that we're supposed to be living.
Absolutely, absolutely, man. Well, guys, I want to join you for another Sunday ministry of Church of True Christ. We had to have Dyanna sign off. Don, if you can hang out for just a couple minutes after we finish. We will be back next Sunday. We will be breaking down some other aspects when it comes to our healing and accepting Christ into our lives. And we'll probably be dishing some destruction of the dogma ourselves as well. So, because, you know, the divine in Christ don't do dogma, only man does. So other than that, Don, thanks for joining us today on Church of True Christ. Everybody have a happy Sunday. I have some exploration I have to go do. And we'll maybe touch base on that next week. So everybody have a great day. Have a happy Sunday. You know what I say. Stay safe, stay free, and most importantly, stay sovereign. Always, guys. Have a good one.